Horizon. I titled my lecture Horizons because, you know, I'm from Brittany. Maybe you don't know. But, and I was living in my childhood close to the sea. And for me, the horizon line is really important because I was always dreaming to go to discover where is the horizon line. And the horizon line, as soon as you start to sail, you discover that you never reach it. Even if you decide to go there, to define a point where you want to go, and you start to negotiate with the wind, with the currents, with the sun, and the point that you find at the end is somewhere, but the horizon line is still in front of you. So you have to continue your travel, to continue the adventure. So this is an adventure, and as soon as you reach the point, you have to do to start a new adventure. So it's always something which is pushing you further. So, and it's the same in architecture. Doing a project is defining something, a place, a goal, what you want to do, in a way, not very precisely, but where you want to go, and what you want to do. And as soon as you start the process of conception, of design, of development, and building, you navigate. So you negotiate with the client, with the budget, with the site, with everything, and the regulation. So this is similar. And for me, it's an adventure. It's never predefined at the beginning. It's just somewhere that I want to go, and we travel to go there. But as soon as you build the building, because the travel is until the end of the construction building, so you want to start a new adventure because it's much more interesting to do the next one. So, and as every time, it's an adventure. So it's why this is a sort of horizon that you want to define and you want to discover every time. So I have to put that away. Okay. So I start by showing you, can we switch off a little bit the light? Because I want to start by an installation that I did in Paris some years ago in an art gallery. Because I was renovating the art gallery, and the owner of the gallery asked me to be the first exhibition of this gallery. And I said, okay, I don't want to do, why? There is no meaning to show architecture, a project in an art gallery, so I have to do something else. And I was coming back to a little drawing that I did for many years to the people in the office to show them, what is that? Where is the pointer? To show them what is for me dynamic equilibrium. Because you can define the equilibrium by having two columns supporting a beam, or you can have just one column. But when you have a column and you want to do the equilibrium with two different weights, you have to define where is the point of equilibrium. But as soon as you reach it, it's always seems to be unstable. So it could be in disequilibrium very fast. And it's why we built it with these two balls, two balloons, one in air, 2 meters diameter, and one in aluminum filled with sand, 50 centimeters. And in between, this is 6 meters. And this is 6 meters of a beam of 6 centimeter by 6 centimeter. And this is the column, 6 centimeter by 6 centimeter. And they filled the space of the gallery with this balloon of 2 meters diameter and this little one. And to fill this one, as soon as we did that, we have to fill that one with the sand, and we have to put the sand at the end, grain by grain, to find the equilibrium, even if it has been calculated at the beginning. Can you switch off the light, please? Because, again, thank you. And if you look at that carefully, the balloon is filling the space, but not touching the ceiling, the walls, and the floor. But because it's really unstable in a way, as soon as somebody was walking on it, on the beside, because the air was where he was displacing the air, the balloon was a little bit moving. So you discover that it was just the limit or the borderline of equilibrium. And it's the way, because it's this dynamic equilibrium is one of the concepts that we use we try to do something unstable, even if architecture is really stable, because you have to build it and you have to go to the ground. I would like always to make it flying, or to give the impression that it can move, or we can displace it. So the Banque Populaire, because you were talking about the Banque Populaire, I think that I have to. It's very recent that I refer now to the Banque Populaire again, because before I was forgiving that, but now I come back to show what I did at the very beginning. Not the very beginning, 20 years ago. It was not the very beginning, but it was a sort of a piece very important at the beginning, 20 years ago. It was a time of the high-tech, but it was a time where, but it's not an high-tech project, because we did this facade, because this facade is a bank where 300 people are working behind the facade, and we are facing the countryside. We are outside the city, we are in the countryside, and the people, where they are in the office, they can look at fields, cows, a little river, etc. So we wanted to express the transparency of the facade, to have the transparent glass facade, to make them looking at outside. But at the same time, this facade is facing the south. So we had to care about the light, the thermal questions of this building. So, so everybody now is talking about green building. But it was a green building just 20 years ago already, because it's a building where you don't have air conditioning inside, because the client didn't want to have it. He wanted that we have windows that people can open. So we have to define the way to protect this glass facade from the south and from the heating of the space behind. So we decided to create, in reference of the galleries that you have everywhere in Italy, where under the buildings, the column with the galleries that you can walk under the shadow, even if it's a very sunny day, by creating this gallery in front of the facade, with having this structure 2 meters before the facade, and to have inside this structure some solar screens, which are animated and activated by solar cells and some wind cells also. Because if there are too much wind, you have to lift them up. If you have too much light, you have to lift them down. So, and by doing that, we created a sort of a gallery in front of the facade by providing shadow to the facade and providing shadow for people walking in front of the facade. And at the same time, we created a sort of a transition, because this structure is very thin, very little, even if it's 12 meters beams, but it's suspended to the big beams on the top with cables to make it horizontal, to stabilize it horizontal. And it's just connected to the glass facade, which is just suspended glass facade, one of the first suspended glass facade, to avoid the displacement of the glass facade for the wind, with the wind. So, and this gallery is a transition between the countryside and the offices places. But because we wanted that people are in the countryside and they just reach their desk, it's impossible. So you have to have a sort of a time of transition. And we did a hall, and this hall is not very big. It's only 100 square meters. But it's 50 meters long. And its back wall is a curved wall, from 0 to 4 meters in the middle and to 0 at the end. And we organized to have the door entrance at one extremity and the door to cross the wall to go to the offices at the other extremity. So when you come in the building, you are just opening the door, facing the wall. So you have to turn your body, discover the space, and start to walk. So it's when you have the visitor coming for the first time in the building, they just do like as I described. This is a dynamic space. For me, it's a dynamic space. It's a space which makes the people walking inside, because first they stop, and after when they look at it, and after that they walk. And you go to the end, to this door, to this hole inside the wall, to enter inside the offices building. So this is a sort of outside, inside, going to the door at the end. No, only 4. So some years a little bit later, in the middle of the 90s, we did this viaduct on the motorway. But first of all, we won the control center for the motorway. It's close to Paris, it's La Défense. And but in the competition brief, it was said that even if we have to design the control center under the motorway, we are allowed to design the shape of the motorway bridge if we want it, but we will not build it. So what we did, because we wanted to build a bridge. As architects, we wanted to build a bridge. Usually this is only the engineers. But we wanted to do it, saying, okay, we have to find another way to do it. So we decided to do as a strategy to hang the building inside the arches of the viaduct. And to have the viaduct as light as possible, even if it's 3 ways on one side and 4 ways on the other side. So it's a quite huge infrastructure, crossing in a park that has been now established, and to let the view and the light passing under the motorway bridge, but also under the bridge, the building, to let the view passing underneath, and to create the building belonging, to show that the building is belonging to the motorways and it's not belonging to the park down. But when we did that, they had to build our bridge. Okay, we can give them the drawing, but they have to develop the bridge in correspondence with the building. That means that finally they gave us not only the commission of the building, but also the commission for the bridge. So we win the strategy that we wanted. So sometimes, as architect, you have to do some strategies with clients. And we had 2 ways, two parts of 2 spans, and we decided to split the building in two L's. And these two wings of offices are splitted with the light in between the two spans of the bridge, to have the light coming down to light the facade in the middle of the bridge, like that. And we decided to create steel arches and to design the shape of the span with a curve underneath, to have the very thin line seen from outside. That means that the bridge seems to be very light, even if it's very solid and very strong. And down we have the car park. We have a lot of technical buildings part. So the macro. Do I have to describe the macro? You know it, no? So I do that very fast. So we are in the center, but not absolutely in the center, because we have outside the walls, close to Termini and the garden. La Villa Borghese, si. Voilà. And this is the old Villa Peroni. So I want to show you how we start to work on this project. Usually we start to work by models. And we started by doing a little model of the site. And we started by understanding the brief, understanding what it is, how we can deal with this site, how we can deal with the program, how we can deal with the condition of Rome and the condition of this historical city. We start by putting objects on the model on the site to make my mind working to understand what we can do. So we did a lot of little models like that, like that, like that. This is never the last project, because this is just the beginning, just to start to make your mind working like that. And at the end, we came to that model for the first phase of the competition. And it was, the first decision was to fill the site, to cover all the site, and to have the possibility to keep the facade, because we were asked to keep the facades on the both streets, here and here, but we could have opened the corner to create a new entrance here. And between the entrance here via Reggio Emilia and the new entrance via Nizza, we have 4.5 meters of difference. Here it's above this one. So we decided to dig the ground to create the high volume, because we have to have in some parts of the exhibition rooms, they ask for 11 meters height. So we didn't have that on the site, except of going up above the walls, but I didn't want to go up above the facade because I was thinking, my God, it's Rome and it's really protected and it's really preserved. And if we do something like a tower above or a building which is going above the walls, we will be pushed out. So I want to stay quietly behind the walls and saying, okay, I don't like to stay behind the walls, but I keep them, and after that I create a new world. So it was, again, a sort of a strategy. So by filling the site, even if they ask for keeping a little garden on the site, so we decided to create a sort of a hall, which is not yet in the model here, to have a little garden after the passing under this corner, and to fill that, because to create a sort of a roof, and this roof could be something else. At the first phase, it was like that. And after that, I came to the site, because I didn't come to the site before, having winning the first phase, going to be selected at the first phase. I know I had to have gone, but I never came. So sometimes you work only on the papers, you know. Yeah, because it's open, it's not paid, so you have to do that much more economically. So after that, we started to develop. For the second phase, we started to develop the auditorium, the passerelles, etc., playing with the passerelle to organize the space and to organize the walkway everywhere, to how to travel the space, etc. And we came to this project. So this is the main exhibition room, which is 1,000 square meters at the corner of the building. The entrance, the new entrance here, above the cafe. In the middle, the foyer with the auditorium and the passerelles. And in that old part of the old building that we had to keep, another exhibition room connected to the ground floor of this part of the building. The glass roof was already there. And because we created this roof, and thanks to the difference between this entrance and this entrance, I discovered that when doing this roof, the levels difference between the courtyard here and the roof terrace, or the courtyard and the foyer below, could be solved by ramps. So we decided to have a ramp coming up directly from the courtyard to the terrace, and with creating a staircase here to go down directly to the street. Because when I came to the site, in between the first phase and the second phase, I discovered first that this part of the site was really interesting because they had already a little building there, and we could have come on the roof, and we were in the middle of the street because of the corner of the street, and at the same time that people were crossing the site very easily when they were living on the surround, because it was an open space, it was an open site. So they loved to shortcut in a way the streets to pass through the site. So I decided to help to let them crossing the site. And I was remembering the Stirling project in München, or in Frankfurt, in München, I think. It was for the museum where he decided to have a pass going up above the building, crossing the building, going down, crossing the museum by not entering the museum, but just a little way. And I was deciding, okay, this time we go and we do like a public square, like a terrace. This roof will become a terrace, and this terrace will become a place, a square. And we can use it like that. And the second decision was to keep the exhibition room as quiet as possible, even if the other spaces could be a bit disturbed. Because at this time, I started by reading a lot about discussion about what is a museum and a contemporary art museum. And I was reading an interview and a discussion in between Daniel Buren, the French artist, and Frank Gehry. And they were discussing together about what is a contemporary art museum. It was a discussion from the beginning of the 90s. And Gehry was asking once to Daniel Buren, does a contemporary art museum has to be a white, neutral box, as everybody is doing? And Buren's answer, not necessarily. Because if you can do a space which has some possibilities for the artist to exhibit and to be free, but the space could resist a little bit to the artist. Because sometimes when the space is resisting to the artist has ideas. So this is a dialogue that you have to create between architecture and art. So I was thinking that maybe I keep the space for the artist, the exhibition room, a little bit quiet. Even that's why I decided to have this exhibition room in the corner, very normal, with vertical walls, and to have the foyer another way, with the space which is with the walls which are not continuous, and with the passerelles in the middle, etc. And I was remembering also the José Luis Sert Museum in Barcelona, where in one part of the Barcelona there is a ramp coming from one room on one floor to another floor, but this ramp is describing turning around the space, the room, to go to the other room above. So this ramp is was giving different point of view to the art show. So I was thinking, if I mix all these ideas that I've seen through my travel in the world, I can do something with a similar effect, but another way. It's why we created all these passerelles, and to have another way of traveling the museum, traveling the space, and after that having this passerelle coming inside the exhibition room to travel the space at mid wall and going up to the roof, to have the possibility for people or visitors traveling here to have another view on the art show, and to give the curators the possibility to have exhibition seen only from above. So to play with possibilities, to offer more flexible possibilities for the art show. And because we are in Rome, for the roof, we said, okay, we do a terrace, we do a square, a public square connected to the city, but at the same time in Rome, we need to have a fountain in the middle, and we need to have the restaurant in front of the fountain. So we created this volume of glass with water running on it. Sometimes it's run, sometimes it's not running. At the moment, it's quite complicated, and still complicated. And the restaurant established in this old structure, open to the terrace in front of the fountain, as everywhere in Rome. So finally, and this terrace used by the museum was the reference to, if I continue like that, I will speak always only on the macro. But because I was not really familiar with Rome, but I remember that in the movies from the 70s, when you have all these movies where with Sophia Loren and Mastroianni talking on the terrace of buildings, on terrace of balconies everywhere in Rome. So that means that the terraces at the top of the building are used by people to be a place for living. So it's why we did this terrace public, because we are not in a private building, public, and at the same time it became a square for the city. So just photos now that you already, the corner of with the cafe. The cafe is in that glass box. So for entering, you go underneath. You travel underneath, so there is no columns. It's just floating above the entrance. You enter inside the garden with the trees, which are very ordinary trees, because I wanted to have trees which are growing very fast, to have the leaves on the roof. Because the garden is not for the people down, it's to protect and to provide shadow inside the courtyard here. Why? Because we have the cafe, which is in the street, but the facade is open to the garden, and you can, during the summer, open all the facade to create the cafe as a terrace on the garden. So I wanted to provide shadow, so I had to have the plants and the trees growing very fast. And inside, you have the staircase, you have the passerelles, and you can travel the building and the space in different ways. And the auditorium is a monolith. And the monolith is not shaped very regularly. It's shaped about asymmetrical. And we dig the ground to make it perceiving like a bit unstable. And outside, it's liquid matte red. And inside, it's bright. Everything is bright, and everything is red. To be like in a sort of a cocoon, to be outside, to be somewhere else, to be in the middle of the museum, in a very particular space, and at the same time in a sort of an art space, and that where you go there to discover movies or art movies or art films, and to have discussion and explanation about what happens in the museum. So this is a place where you can discuss, understand the museum. This is the art of the museum. And we design with Poltrona Frau the seats, etc., and all the details of this. So, and this exhibition room is really calm. It's really normal, but it's very high because the brief at the beginning was not a total brief for Contemporary Art Museum. It was an art gallery, and they didn't know precisely what it was, what it could be, because they were thinking in the brief that they could have art, shows, dance, theater, etc., etc. So they said we have to have a scene, a stage somewhere, you have to have a grill somewhere, etc. So it's why they ask for different heights. So thanks to these heights, we add this space which is not regular, in vertically. And at the same time, that creates the terrace above, the square above, with different levels of floor. And because this space is huge, and I didn't want to have columns inside, so we had to have a steel structure that we developed with the engineers, and I wanted to have everything inserted in the ceiling, not too much thin, so it's why we painted black the ceiling and everything inside to make it disappearing, and to have the space isolated from the ceiling with the technical elements. But the structure is very huge and very strong because the terrace, or the square, which is 3,000 square meters, has only 4 columns and this wall in the middle. So everything, because I wanted to have a sort of a flying roof, to have no columns, to leave the space free everywhere. And the toilets. Toilets are important in architecture. When you are an architect, this is a place where you can design freely. You are free to design the toilets. You can play, you can do jokes, you can do what you want. What do you want with toilets? So my toilets in the macro as referring to the movie by Jacques Tati, Playtime. Playtime from the 60s was the movie which ruins Jacques Tati because he put all his money in it. But at the same, and it's a movie where he wanted to express the ultra-modernity of the 60s that everybody was believing on it. And it's the ultra-modernity which was supposed to come. So everything in the city, because it's a city where characters are walking and moving, but without understanding any story. And this city is, everything is bright, smooth, lucido, and nothing, no rugosity, no smell, no taste, nothing, etc. Everything is cold. And in one of the first sequences of the movie, the main character, which is played by Jacques Tati himself, is going to an offices building, and he has to go to the waiting room. And the waiting room is covered by steel everything, the floor, the ceiling, and the walls. So it's really noisy and soundy. And he wears shoes with leather soles. So it's really soundy on the steel. So, and I said, okay, we can play like with that, with a soundy space, and at the same time a very cold space, covered by stainless steel mirrored, with 2 big mirrors on both sides of the main space in the middle, to reflect the space infinitely in it, to create this object like an island in the middle, a white parallelepiped, where you have this landscape depressed in the middle. And when you come out from the toilet, you have to play with your hands, making them dancing above this object. And as soon as you cross with your hands the infrared tester, the water is coming up, and the box is coming red, is becoming red. Because 40 years later, or 50 years after the 60s, the ultra-modernity cold didn't arrive. So we are a little bit warm. And I wanted to have the fire and the cold at the same time. And if you look carefully, you discover that this is the drying for the hand. So you have to manipulate your hands again. You have to have the water coming up, and somewhere you find the soap. So everything is inside this object, and you just play with your hands. So everybody is coming out from the toilets with smiling. So the shop, and everything is black except the exhibition rooms. It was not the decision at the very, very beginning of the construction. It was a decision that I took on the way. Because we started by having samples of painting for the concrete that I wanted to keep the concrete because it was an industrial building before, the Perroni building, and I wanted to keep industrial ways of building. So everything has to be, I wanted to keep everything in concrete, and I wanted to keep everything simple. So just painting the concrete. So we tried different grays, and somebody said, why not white? I said, okay, you can try, but I will not choose that. So, and we decided, okay, why not trying the black? So I said, yes, but it could be a little bit too much, etc. I said, okay, we tried. So we tried the black, and when I saw the black, I said, this is fantastic. So we decided to paint everything black except the exhibition rooms, which are the place where artists can express themselves. But everywhere else, in the public spaces, it's black. And at the end, the director and the curator said, but we can exhibit on the black walls. But when you want to decide to put art on black walls, you have to have a strong piece. Because, so finally, the black is another neutral color as the white, but it's a difficult one. It's much more hard because it absorbs everything. So you have to have a strong piece of art to be hanging or to be on the black walls. But it works. Now there are always art exhibiting on the walls, on the black walls. And the terrace, it's a huge surface of 3,000 square meters with the restaurant under this roof. And you know, in Italy, you know that, but in Rome, you have the Beni Culturali and the Sovrintendenza. So we had to decide the color of the facade. So at the beginning, these facades were yellow, different types of yellows. And I didn't like that, as that, but a bit different. And I provoked them by saying, okay, we will paint them black. My God. So they said, no, you can't do that. I said, okay, but we are, so white. So I said, yes, but, so we did have a meeting with 3 superintendents. The state, the region, and the city. All together, 1 hour and a half, looking at the facade, discussing, trying. So at the end, I had my white facade. And I said, you know, I have another problem. The tiles that we had to keep on the roof there were red, but broken. So we had to take them off, and we have to choose, and I want to make them black. I said, oh, no. I said, yes, but you know, this is normal. We have everything. So I agree that we do the facade white. Why not doing the tiles black? After 1 hour and a half more, okay, I have the black one. So, but it was not the end of the story, because at the end of the process of the construction, we had to open and to renovate this part, which was yellow. And the director of the time said, why not painting that in black? I said, oh, if you can do it, it's fantastic. And we did it. So we did it because we have started to do the black, so we continue the black. So now Rome will become black once. But not because I'm the only one in black. And so this is the fontaine, the glass, and etc. So this is the height of the exhibition room, which is not the same height everywhere. It's coming from 7 meters here to 11 meters height here. And in the night, the glass roof of the fontaine, the glass surface to the exhibition room, and the glass of the restaurant and the educative room are lighting the terrace. And we designed with Ruce plan the lamps, some javelets that we hung in front of, to have the terrace of the restaurant. When the days are better, the weather is good, you can open the facade, or total the facade of the restaurant. You can take out the seats and the tables, and you can sit under this lighting. And inside the restaurant, we have hundreds of them. And the cafe is in the street. It's above the entrance, but in the street, with the multicolored chairs that we designed with poltrona and the tables. And now, the people from the first floor are inside the building, in front of the level of the cafe, like if you have been in the street. And the people from the second floor are in front at the ground floor of the square. So everybody has changed his perception of the city space, in a way. And we designed the door handles and the door bottom, and for the sliding doors and the big open doors. Now we go to Paris, to the Opéra Garnier, where once I was in Bretagne, and a Saturday afternoon, under the sun, and I received a call from a man who was asking me if I could have been interested to design the restaurant in the Opéra Garnier. I said, are you joking? He said, no, because I was looking at some models that you have exhibited somewhere, and if you are interested, I'm interested to meet you. So we met, and he told me that he has won the competition to do the restaurant in the Opéra Garnier, but he has presented a project with an architect. The Ministry of Culture rejected the project because it was not a project, it was not what they wanted. So they were asking for another architect. So he was searching for another one. So we met. So he asked me to do a project and gave me the constraints. And the constraints were that I can have changed, because we are in a rotunda, which was an open space before, on the B side of the opera, where the carriage were coming in to deposit the people under the protection of a cupola. And it's an open space, so we have to close it to create a restaurant. But the facade couldn't be inside the arches of the cupola. They have to be somewhere else. And they have to be absolutely transparent, that we can't see that there is a facade. And we have to create a space, a second level inside, but it's forbidden to do a second level. And you can't touch anything on the walls and under the cupola because everything is protected. And I discovered this time that the Opéra Garnier was the more protected monument in France, because it has been built in the middle of the 19th century and never been with never intervention of contemporary architecture inside, or modern intervention. So, and Charles Garnier did the project, the building itself, but also designed the facade around the space, the buildings. That means that the urban space around is also protected. So that means everything is protected and everything is untouched. And they said at the beginning, when I presented my project at the beginning, no, you create a floor, it's impossible. You create a facade, it's impossible. I said, yes, but I have to organize a restaurant, you know. So this is the space underneath this cupola that I had to create the restaurant. And it was open before. And you don't see that there is a facade, that there is glass. Because I started by doing a line, a curved or sinuous line here, behind the arches, the columns, to not create windows. This is the grid which was there. So to not creating windows, to create just a glass surface undulating behind, and with the possibility by curving the glass sheets to make them stable without any frames. And I had to create a second floor, a floor inside. So I decided to continue to turn and sinuous and to create these lines, to create a mezzanine without touching the walls, turning around the columns, creating a hall, having a staircase in the middle with two columns without touching them. So everything is not touching the walls and the cupola. And this line has been negotiated with the Ministry of Culture, with commission for the historical monument, because they wanted that I keep this center of the cupola above seen from below, that you know when you enter inside the restaurant that you are under a cupola. Because at the beginning I had this line coming much more closer to the facade, and the position of this line has been negotiated twice. So in a way, I didn't design that at the beginning. It's a result of a negotiation. But by doing that, we created these balconies, which are very particular inside the restaurant. And we pass the National Committee for Historical Monument, and we had the vote unanimity. So they said it's an exemplar project. Oh my God, I became an exemplar architect working in a historical monument. It was not what I was thinking before. But sometimes history. So the only place where we have a frame, it's where we have the door entrance. Because the door entrance are flat, and we have to make them stable. So we have to have a frame. But it's not touching the walls or the columns, just here and here in between the joints in the stones. And everywhere else, you see the curved walls, the curved glass sheets, coming up directly to 6 meters high, which is the level of the cornice on the pylons, and going up to the cupola, with not anchoring anything inside the stone, just a silicone joint on the top, because the glass facade is auto-stable. And inside the mezzanine is in steel structure with molding plaster that we shaped around the columns, and we pushed back all the columns to close to the other columns to keep the space as open, as free as possible, as the cupola was before. And we covered that by plaster, and we kept the plaster thin as maximum as possible to have a mineral aspect, as the stones are minerals. And when doing that, because of this mold shaping forms around the steel structure, we worked exactly as Charles Garnier was working 150 years ago. Because Charles Garnier didn't build the building in stones. He built the building with a steel structure. It was the very, very beginning of the steel structure. And the Opera Garnier is built with a steel structure. And the stones are just a decoration in a way. But in between the steel structure and the stones, you have the space to have all the shaft for the ventilation and the heating system of the Opera Garnier. So this is really, really modern. And we did exactly the same, because we did the steel structure, the plaster around, and in between, the shafts, the tubes, and everything for electricity. So we don't see anything technical in the restaurant. Because you can see these little pockets that we created for having the lighting system inside, to use the surface underneath the mezzanine as a reflection. And on the back side, you have the lounge, which is very close to the opera room place with 3 doors here. So when there is a show, they open the doors, and people can pass at the entr'acte, in the middle of the show, and at the end, from the opera to the restaurant to have a drink or to have a dinner. And this space is with a lounge, a banquet, or a sofa, which is turning around to create spaces and to separate the lounge to the restaurant space itself. And above, inside the mezzanine, everything is red. The floor, the seats, the table, and the banquets. To create some private corners, private places. And this is a place, the mezzanine is a place where you can decide to have a sort of a many friends, a place, individual, or private, more private. So I always say that you go with your wife or your husband or your officials down on the street, and with the unofficial on the first floor in the evening. And you have some views down and you have a relation to the cupola which is absolutely different. So you nearly touch the cupola. So we just opened in July the new museum in Rennes for contemporary art. And it's in France with a very, can I say, normal regulation for urban planning, where an architect decides that you have to build on a rectangle, and because you have a certain height to fulfill, at the end you have to build a parallelepiped. So it's a bit sad, but you have to build a parallelepiped. Because when you fill the brief inside the volume dedicated to the space, you discover that you have no possibility other than doing a parallelepiped. So I was a bit disappointed when I discovered that I have to build a parallelepiped. So I decided, okay, I built a parallelepiped, but I cut it. So I cut it directly with this oblique line from the top to the level below to the storage, to have a big vertical space for 30 meters high from below to the top, where we can, with this narrow, very long space, describe a journey inside the building. And this art piece, which is an art piece by an abstract artist who died 5 years ago, it's an art piece of 72 stones of granite of 4.5 meters height, playing on the number 9 with 72 by 91 centimeters section. And she said, she knew that the museum will come close to her piece, and she said, okay, the museum has to have a silencious facade in front of my piece, because my piece was there before, and you can't, you can't light your facade because you can't light my piece. So another constraint. So I decided, okay, I played with the volume, with the forms. This is one of the models that we did at the beginning. This is not the final one. And some sketching to try to create the space in the middle by pushing the space to open the space in the middle. And having this vertical promenade with the lift, which is a lift for the art pieces and also for people, and the promenade in the middle with ramps and different levels on both sides to create a sort of journey through the building, and a silencious facade, totally black. But it's not total black. This time the black is outside. So this is the line, which is exactly at the same height than the stones. Here it's stainless steel black with three different black, but you don't see it because it depends on the lighting of the sky, and it changes of colors all the time. And this is glass, but every row has a different composition of glass. So it comes from a very opaque, total opaque black to a gray transparent. But from outside, you don't see that during the day. During the day, the facade becomes is perceived as black. But in the night, it's something else. And we have, because it was in the regulation, that we have to create this floor a bit back and to have a cover. So we decided to have a flying roof above and to have the glass facade again for the offices on the top. And this volume is the main exhibition room, 50 meters long and 500 square meters. And this is in cantilever above this space, which is a public space, and it's supported by this concrete block, black concrete, which changes of colors depending on the humidity or not. And the entrance is here, so you don't see anything. From outside, it's a silencious block, a monolith black, as the artist asked. And sometimes it looks very black. But it depends on the light, you know. So you never know what colors you will discover. And inside, as soon as you enter inside, this is something else, again. So you discover that the facades that you perceive as black are transparent, because the light is outside. You just enter and you are facing the back of the auditorium, and you discover that there is a vertical space here. But you can't go there, because the only ramp that you have is going down. to the entrance of the auditorium below. So you just see it, but you can't go in. To go there, you have to take this staircase. And you discover the space. So you turn inside the space with a bank, with a bench that we designed. And in the middle. And you have to take this long, narrow, very narrow space to walk all the facade. And this is going to 1.5 meters width. So very narrow, very tension space. And then you go to the cafe. So you enter into the cafe. So you are going to a museum, and the way you go is going to the cafe. And after that, you start, and you have the lighting of the cafe, which is playing with the color of the ceiling. And you start by having at the back of the cafe another ramp, and you start to describe the way or the journey inside the space, the vertical space. With the tension in between the auditorium and the ceiling, which is not connected, with a steel facade, which is turning inside the space, but it's creating is seen as another color, another black again, because depending on the light inside. Sometimes you have to walk sometimes on stairs, on steps, sometimes on ramps, sometimes on real stairs. And these stairs are just steel sheets of steel anchored inside the concrete wall. And the parapet is a glass parapet hanging to the door, to the handle protection. So everything is in the inverse, as usual, just to do something, to play with something technique. And the exhibition rooms are very calm, white, normal, rectangular, with a wall oblique a little bit to have the door, the sliding wall, because it's a wall which is sliding just in front of the lift to make the art coming in directly. On both sides, you can enter in with the lift, which is stopping at every level. And you continue the journey. And always, because thanks to the position, we have an east facade and a north facade, we can have frame the city outside or frame the landscape outside to make this frame of the landscape and the city part of the exhibition in a way. And with the natural light coming inside the exhibition room. You go up, again up, a view down, and the main exhibition room of 50 meters long. And because this one is on the south, we have the light coming in from the top, with the parapet of the terrace above coming up a little bit further to protect and to provide shadow, and never having the light, the sun directly inside the room. The library for the kids too. The auditorium inside is black, absolutely black, and very difficult to light it because the lighting that we did at the beginning was not enough. So we had to add a lot of lighting. Not easy to light a black room. The toilets, again. With my photo, you couldn't understand the space of the toilets because the walls are mirrored again and they are curved. So they are reflecting each other, so you don't understand the space. So you have to go there to discover what are the toilets. And we wrote with the fluorescent tubes WC. You don't understand. Where is this? I will not explain to you. You have to go there. And in the night, because we lighted inside only the auditorium and the ceiling, the facade will become transparent, and the outside is lighting by the red. And it's really dark and red. We are building at the moment an offices building in Lyon for a headquarters of a big company. And this is on Confluence. Confluence is a place in between where you have the river Rhône and the river Saône connected, and it was the industrial harbor before. and the industrial harbor has left, and now they are developing a new area close to the city center, which is here. And a company who is the owner of this quay, which is the company which is in charge, national one, which is in charge of the rivers, is the owner of the building from the sugar, the building from the customs, and the building from the salt. And they decided to renovate these buildings and to create new buildings. So they did a competition without program, and I won this one. And just at the end, which is at the opposite of the Kopimel-Blau Museum, under construction too. And we are now building it. So again, my site was a parallelepiped, and I had to build a parallelepiped. So I said, okay, I don't want to do it, so this time I didn't cut it. I just twist the upper part in cantilever to the river bank to have a glass box transparent down with 2 levels and 4 levels a bit darker above in cantilever. So, and we have been asked to work with an artist during the competition, and I worked with Félix Chevarini, who is a Swiss artist living in Paris, and he works on the question of perspectives and point of view. So he told me, okay, I told him, you can play with my facade, you do what you want on my facade. You can disturb, tall, etc. Change the perception of my facade. He said, Odile, you don't never give an order to an artist, I do what I want. I said, okay, do what you want. So he said, okay, architects are arrogant, and architecture is erasing the landscape behind. So I want to rebuild the landscape on your building. But because this is a building, I will take a picture from the top of the building on the 4 directions, and I will reapply on the facade, the landscape which is behind, but in black and white. So we are coming from the north, so we are going to the end of the peninsula, and you see the end of the peninsula, you see the bridge, which is just here. So the landscape is rebuilt on the facade, in the glass facade, on the 4 directions. But for doing this huge cantilever, which is 25 meters above the bank of the river bank to the river, and 4 levels, we had to build a very huge structure. Because we were an industrial harbor, we had these huge cranes and this huge bridge to transfer the goods from the river to the bank. So we built as for these objects. That means that we built 3 huge pylons inside an atrium to support huge beams, crossing beams in the middle and one in the others, and beams all over the 4th floor, and to have suspension tubes, very tiny little tubes, to support and to hang the floors below. The space is open, with only some offices enclosed, with the atrium in the middle. You look at these huge columns. One is with a staircase, one is with 1 lift, and the other one with 2 lifts. And this is the place of the facade below. So that means that here we are in the atrium with a roof floor, and you see the bank of the river down. But when you walk on the river bank, you see through the building too. And this is in cantilever. So it was 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks, because now the facade is starting. You see these huge objects that we had, that they kept on the side. So my building is going up to the river. So huge beams. This is 4.5 meters. If you see this man, look at this man and look at this height. This is the 4th floor, in the middle of the 4th floor. And now, for me, it seems to be very little, but it's huge. So you see the facade starting to be hanging on the structure. And inside, the atrium is 28 meters high to the rooftop. And inside, the client decided that everything has to be transparent. So when we have enclosed offices, we have to have transparent glass partitions. So we decided to have to keep the false floor, because we need that for the cables, for the connection, etc. To avoid the false ceiling, to use the concrete ceiling slab above to keep to have the warmth coming, the heating of the day coming into the floor, and during the night to refresh it. But because of that, we have problem of acoustic and we have problem of lighting, because usually we use the false ceiling for that. So we created with Luce Plan new lamps, which are acoustic and lighting at the same time, and that we call petals, floating above the office, the desk. And they are developed now by Luce Plan. Oh, doesn't work? Yes. And sometimes you have a cafeteria and some offices. And the toilets will be red this time. All red. And the lamps that we develop with Luce Plan. And the prototype in their offices. And in 2007, we won the competition for Tangier for the sea passenger terminal. Maybe I have to run a little bit more. No, I have to. So, the King of Morocco decided to build a huge harbor in the entrance of Mediterranean Sea, which for containers. As soon as they built it, they discovered that it's not enough, so they decided to build another one, which is under construction now. And in between, they want to have a ferry passenger terminal. So they did a competition and we won it. So as soon as we won it, we discovered that we don't have to just build the terminal, but we have to develop all the site itself, because they didn't have a plan. So we have to develop this surface with the control system, with the tickets, the custom and police on one way and the other way. And you see this is a motorway, but this motorway is at 20 meters above the sea level. This platform is at 15 meters above the sea level. And the train here is at 10 meters, or no, 7 meters above the sea level. That means that we have a motorway infrastructure to negotiate, a surface for the control, and after that to have the cars and trucks and bus going to the car park, and to develop the car park. And we have the train, because the terminal is the train station, and the train is going back further. And we have the taxi and personal deposit, which are with the car park. And everybody is coming to the terminal and going to the huge lounge, and after that to the little satellites to go to the ferry. But if you think about a passenger terminal on an harbor, usually you go there and you walk on the tarmac, you walk on the floor, you go on the ground, and you go up and down with your luggage, because in an harbor you never deposit your luggage to a belt as you do in an airport. So you are always suffering by carrying your luggage. So we wanted to give the people the possibility to walk a little bit more comfortably. That means that it's why we established the terminal at 7 meters high here, because the ferries, the big ferries, door entrance by pedestrian is at 7 meters above the sea level. That means that people could walk from the terminal directly to the lounge, and directly to the satellite, and directly to the ferry, without going up and down with huge luggage. And because we are in Tangier, this is the entrance of Africa for people coming from tourists, but also the entrance for people working, Moroccan people working in Europe and coming back to visit their family. So we have two categories of people, two categories of feeling, two categories of condition of traveling. And we had to care about that. And at the same time, it's a place where a lot of Africans and Moroccans and other people wants to go to cross the Mediterranean or the Detroit here, because it's just in front of Gibraltar. So this is only 30 kilometers. And they want to cross to go to Europe. So we have a lot of safety problems, security problem, etc. So this is a very huge problem, condition problem. So we decided to design this passenger like a sort of animal anchored to the site with tentacles to go to the sea, and to have the waiting room a little bit close to the sea, because sometimes, you know, when the sea is not so good, you have to wait for hours and hours somewhere because before crossing. So we have to provide a sort of comfortable condition for people. Even for those who are waiting in their cars, it's why we lift up the lounge. No, this is the terminal first, the interior of the terminal, and the lounge. And the lounge is like a well, lift up above the ground, with the ground digged underneath to provide shadow for people staying in their car to be able to go there, to go up, to find toilets, to find drinks, etc., to provide them a little bit of comfort on this surface, sometimes with hot weather. But for the moment, we wait because finally they had problems during the economic crisis in 2009, so we are waiting. But I'm not sure that it will be built finally, because in Morocco you never know. In Italy you never know, but in Morocco it's worst. In Italy you don't build. When you win, you don't build usually. I was very lucky with my museum. Everybody told me that, so I know that I'm lucky, but not in Morocco. So, and this year we won a new museum. It's in Nanjing, where they discovered some years ago one of the oldest bones of humanity, in a cave, in a mountain, at 1 hour of driving from Nanjing. So they decided now to develop that as a huge site for having this history of humanity somewhere and to build a museum. So they did a competition and I won the competition. So this is this site where you have these little mountains. This is during the summer. That means that the summer weather, we are in a tropical weather. That means that you see the sun rarely during the year. Maybe mid of autumn and mid of spring. Usually it's humid and you don't see the sky. So this is particular condition. And this is a place where they have a lot of quarries, so they dig the mountains. It's how they discover the caverns, and how they discover the bones. And we decided, because the site is interesting, that we have to play with the lines of the site, and we have to, because these caves were inside the mountains, we decided to play with the mountains and to develop the building from the mountains. So we decided by playing with the lines of the mountains and the site, by lifting them, digging them, transforming the lines of the site, developing surfaces in between these lines, and developing some models, paper models, and after that to define precisely the line, the curved line, from the mountains to the museum. Because it's not only a museum, because there is a pavilion, an entrance pavilion. There are some shops everywhere. There are huge car park. They will have some sites around for explaining different things, and hotels, etc. It's at the end very commercial, but also very cultural. So this is one of the more recent images that we develop now, because we are at the phase that they will start to dig in January, and we won in February this year. They will dig next year, because they won the building for 2014. So it's another time, it's another way of perceiving the time in China. And because we are in the mountain, I wanted to build it as I said, with the curved, and to build, because they said that they don't want to have a total glass facade. So we proposed to have a sort of a screen with stones in front of the glass facade, to have the possibility for people to travel everywhere outside and inside the same ways. But there is a main circulation, vertical circulation at that place, in that place, and these two levels, this high level of ground floor and mezzanine is for commercial. With millions of people coming inside this museum, as they expect, so we need escalators. We can't have only staircase and ramps, it's not enough. So we played with the escalators, and we played with the holes of this atrium in a way, or vertical hole, to displace it on every level, to play with the lift that people are traveling the space and discover the space on both sides in different manners. And sometimes staircase. For the exhibition, we proposed some exhibition set for the different exhibitions that they needed. But finally, they decided that they appointed an American company for doing that. So I will start to discuss with them next month. And some years ago, we did a building in Shanghai, a very little one, that a client asked me for coming to a jury in the center of China for a tower. And I answered yes, and as soon as I answered, they said to me, they answered again, do you want to come with a project? I said yes, but for what? They said for a pavilion. I said yes, but can you send me the site? And they sent me a file of A0, a sheet of A0 paper, white, nothing on it, except a little pond, blue, somewhere. And they said, this is your site. I said, okay, but what is this sheet for? This is for developing project buildings for exhibiting furniture. Okay, 4 hectares. Okay, and I have the little pond in the middle for 1,500 square meters building, so very little one. So I came there, arriving with one project, and this because it was 2 weeks further. And I said, okay, I propose you that, and said, do you have others? I said, no, I came with only one. I said, okay, we will build it. So I was allowed to come only 3 times. And I decided, because when I knew that before, they said a little bit about that condition, that I can't come so often, they will not pay for my travels. So I have to do something a little bit simple but complex. Because I was thinking back about a discussion that I had with Peter Rice when I worked with him for the facade of the Banque Populaire. Peter Rice told me that when Renzo Piano won the Osaka airport, he was, because he went to Japan to receive his prize, and the prize was a big amount of money. And they said to him, thank you, we'll come back for the opening of the building. He said, no, I want to build the project with you, to develop it. He said, no, you will come back. He said, do you have questions? Do you have problems? He said, yes, we have problems with the roof and the facade. He said, okay, can we negotiate? I do the roof and the facade, and you do everything else. So Peter Rice told me, sometimes you have to do some complex thing where they don't know how to build that. Now in Japan and China, take care because they know very well, much more. They are going fast. But so I decided to propose something which is not so, which seems to be simple, but which is not easy to a bit complex in structure. And so I propose on my pond to build a sort of pyramid, pavilion pyramid, because my pond was not enough large. It was not 1,500 square meters. It was much less than that. So I had to go down and to go up. And I could have gone to 20 meters high. So I decided to do this and to propose that building. And I went 3 times 1 week, discussing with the engineers and the architects, exchanging by emails a lot, coming there for going to the supermarket of materials, huge, enormous supermarket, huge site of supermarket choosing the materials, choosing the floors, choosing the materials of the facade, the glass, etc., in huge supermarket or shopping malls of materials. And at the end, they sent me the pictures. It was 14 months later, after my first email, and it was exactly what I designed. So it's possible. Not always, but this one. So, but the structure was a bit complex because when I received the first plans from the engineers, the beams were going out everywhere, etc. So finally I said, okay, I developed that for you and you let me do. We are doing offices in Paris in a very particular condition again. This is a huge warehouse of 400 meters long, built in the 60s that the city of Paris bought, and asked Rem Koolhaas to do a master plan to develop it, because this storage or this warehouse has been built to have the possibility to build 6 floors above it. And Rem Koolhaas proposed to have different plots on it to cut the storage there, the warehouse here, to let the tramway passing through. And the city decided to choose one architect on every plot. So this is residential, 2 offices building, and they gave me this one, which is for new technology, a sort of incubator for new technology, new startup companies, and to do a competition for sport facilities and schools that Kengukuma won. We have Port Zamparier, a lot of French architects, me and Kengukuma. So this is very long, and this is really complicated, because under the warehouse, they are digging to create a car park of 2 levels, 2 floors of car park. Inside the warehouse, they are transforming it on a huge commercial center. And above, we are building buildings of 6 floors above. Can you imagine the structural condition and the condition of the site? It's horrible. But, okay. So, because mine was for incubator of new startup companies, I was thinking, okay, this is not offices building, I can do what do I want. So I proposed them to do a huge building of, this is the car park, the commercial center, and I'm the only one who is going down to the ground floor. The other residential buildings are staying above the commercial center. I'm the only one which is going down. And 6 floors above. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and to the top. And a huge atrium, because there is here the sort of a courtyard for the car park, and lift and escalators to go up to a sort of a passage crossing the building. So it's very complex. And I propose them to have bubbles on the facade, because Rem Koolhaas gave a regulation. This is the facade of the old warehouse. We have to have crystal, mineral, crystal, mineral. What does that mean? I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know. But, okay. So every architect interpreted that. So I was thinking, okay, I do crystal, my facade, the entrance facade is in glass. The old facade is in concrete, so, okay, it's mineral. Again, glass, because it's crystal. And above, what can I do? And I was thinking, I will not do stone, because I have to build in a steel structure, so I have to build very light. And I decided to have these ceramic panels on the facade, and to create bubbles and protect that by screens, but by solar screens. But at the same time, the client, the company which will be which will rent the spaces for the startup, said, this is not an offices facade. I said, no, this is not for offices, this is for an incubator of startup. And they are for multimedia, so they can play with bubbles. What do they? This is IDs or something like that, because we have to sometimes to find IDs to describe what you want to propose, even if it's like just that, And I decided that it could be white on the south facade and black on the north facade. And in between, on the east facade, because I have an east facade, it's becoming from black to white and to white to black. And so, there's 1 year to convince the future utilizer running the company who runs the space to do these bubbles. But the city helped me for that. And now we are developing, and we will start to build it next year. But it's a very complicated thing. So, some years ago, we did another steel building in a very strange site. It doesn't look very well like that, but it's a steel building, all built in steel. That means that the structure in steel, the facade are in steel, the floors are in steel, the partitions are in steel. Because we are in a steel company, we are in Arcelor, which is now Mittal, one of the branches. And this is in a huge site, in the middle of a huge site, with huge building of 1 kilometer long, colored with that sort of facade around me. And I have to do a very little tiny one for offices. That means 700 square meters, very little one. And I proposed them to build in steel, and they said, are you sure that you want to build in steel? You don't want to build in concrete? I said, but you are the company for steel. I can build in steel. But at the beginning, they didn't trust me. So finally, we did, because the facade are specific panels that are structural and can support the floor in the middle and support the floor on the roof. So this is particular folded panels which are articulated all together, connected all together, and which are strong enough to support the floors. And they were developing that panel, so I said, okay, we can build with that. Okay. And I wanted to have a hall in the middle, a main hall, entrance hall, and they needed to have meeting rooms. So I proposed them to have the meeting rooms in that volumes, which is just supported by 3 little columns that you see there, very little tiny one, and supported and hanging to the roof with staircase going in to have a promenade in that very ordinary building. And at the beginning they were quite frightened, but now they like it. So in Brittany we are building 3 glass houses. I had an engineer who was developing glass facades, and he has a friend who is an industrial in London who is developing glass and steel and experimenting with glass and steel. And this man has a specific illness in his eyes that is slowly losing the possibility of seeing because of the macular illness. That means that he has black points in his eyes. So he wanted to build a house, a holidays house in France, on the river, on the seaside, to have and to build it all in glass to have the maximum light as possible. And he wanted to use a specific glass that he wanted to develop with nano gel in between a double glass panel. Finally, he couldn't do it, so he developed another system. And the engineers decided to build also a house, and the nephew of the industrial decided to do a house. But they told me that I have to find the city where to build it, and I have to find the land. So I remember that an architect, a friend of mine, is working in this city, Carantec, on the north side of Brittany, and where there are a lot of wood house from many years. So I was thinking maybe they are open mind in this little city. So I called him and he said, yes, the regulation, you have no regulation for architecture, you can do what do you want. I said, can I build a glass house? He said, yes, why not? So I asked him to find a person to help me for finding the land, and I came there and I discovered 3 lands. I proposed that to my client, and they bought one of them, and they decided to build these 3 houses. But it's not the end of the story, because as soon as they bought the land, they decided to build these 3 houses with the same surface, each of them, but one is a single, the other one is a couple, and the third one is a family with 2 kids. But 175 square meters, each of them. Not the same house, and the same surface of glass panels, exactly the same. So, and we are in Brittany, where we have the pitch roof everywhere. So, I decided to propose a parallelepiped inclined to have a roof and to have a hole inside that as a sort of a patio with a facade, to have 2 volumes inserted inside, a glass, black glass, to have all the services inside, the bathroom, the kitchen, etc. And to play with the surfaces inside. But each of them is inclined differently. The volume is a bit different, but they have the same surfaces inside and the same quantity of glass panels inside on the facade. And now they are under construction. And that's all what I can show you. This is the beginning of the construction. Oh my God, what is written? Okay, so in front of my building in Lyon, I have been asked to develop a project for a restaurant on the river, a floating restaurant on the river. So I decided to do bubbles, because the river has bubbles. and to propose the restaurant as a collection of bubbles, one for the entrance, toilets, kitchen, lounge, restaurant, and cafe. And to propose them like that, that means the kitchen is like a kitchen tool. The lounge is more funny. Terrace in front of the lounge as a basket. And the restaurant in another basket in the other side, and the cafe. And to have that like that. And my client in the building said, oh, I will build it after finishing the building. So I hope, but I'm not sure. And the company of the river and that I talked to you about in Lyon asked me to develop a project in Paris, a floating object on the river Seine. It was a competition that we did here, Grand Palais, Invalides, not bad, Champs-Élysées. The site is here. And it's a very little object for 1,200 square meters with a hotel, some rooms, and a restaurant, and events place. But 2 programs that they ask for to be able to split them, each of them 600 square meters. If you refer to the first anisotropy, the first image that I show you at the beginning, Homeostasie installation, I don't like the symmetry, I like dissymmetry. So I wanted to create with my 600 square meters dissymmetrical objects. So, and I found somewhere that the physicians which are describing the place where the universe is falling down in the black hole could be described like that. It's a sort of a schematic idea. But the place here, the distortion of the space and the surface of the space itself is called an anisotropy. So I said, okay, we will build an anisotropy. So we decided by developing a ribbon inside the place here, the volume here, describing the outside surface of this one, coming down to describe the inside space volume of this one, and doing like that. This is above the river level for the rooms of the bedrooms of the hotel, like a submarine on the river bank. And the other one is the ribbon down to describe the space, the terrace in front of the restaurant, down under the level of the river. Connected to the river bank to be able to split them and to have the possibility to have an intimate space for the outside space of the restaurant. Now they are searching for a client, and one of them has decided to propose that to Singapore. It looks a bit strange, but it's like that. So we sent the drawings to Singapore to a client, to somebody else that I never met. And he said, but it's very small, very little. Can you increase the size? So we had developed it for going to this 1,200 square meters to 6,000 square meters. So, and we are waiting now for if they want to develop it, to build it in Singapore or not. And the people in Paris said, yes, but we want to build that size in Paris. Okay, it's very strange. 2 the same site, the same building, but 2 different scale. Why not? So I will tell you next time the end of the story. This is just really recent because we sent to Singapore 2 weeks ago. So we are waiting now. So you know that we designed a boat. Maybe you don't know. Because I received once. Okay, so I can, maybe I have to look at the time, no? Okay. Oh, okay, I have time. You will not have time for asking questions. So this is, once I gave an interview, thanks to Paola, which is here, to the Corriere della Sera, where they asked me about, can I explain the difference between Paris and Rome? And I said, oh, for me it's easy, this is a question of plan. If I go to Paris, I look at the map, I bought a map, and I follow the boulevards, the axis, the river Seine, etc., and I know where I am, and I can go from one boulevard to another avenue to another, etc. It's very easy to follow. If I go to Rome, I look at the map, forget it. So, because it's chaotic and really chaotic. So, and you have to understand where are the little squares. And you have to go from one square to another square and to travel and to as you are traveling when you sell, depending of your feeling, depending of the time that you have to spend, and you choose a little street like that, etc. And I was talking about selling. And 2 weeks later, I received a call that somebody was asking me if I want to build a boat, a sailing boat, if I knew something about sailing boat. I said, yes. Do you want to build one? I said, yeah, why not? But I can't build the body. He said, no, you will not build the body. You will work with a specific architect. I said, why not? So I met him 2 weeks later again, and we had a lunch in Rome because it's an Italian. And we started by discussing for 3 hours. First, at the beginning, about food, whiskey, chocolate, what do we like, what do we don't like, etc. A very young man. That's why we were like that. And after that, we discussed about music. And after that, we discussed about colors and materials. And once he said, if we built a boat, which color? I said, why not black? He said, oh, yes. I said, I'm going to Brittany. There are corsair and pirates, so we can build a black boat. He said, oh, yes, it will be. He was wearing black. I was wearing black. It's normal. So, and he took in his bag a booklet. And when I saw the booklets, I was really doing that under the table. My God, I dream. So it's a 143 feet long boat. That means 44 meters long. The mast is 50 meters high, and it's only one mast. And it's a racing super yacht. It's like, how do they call that? And we had the discussion at this time about the deck. Because he said that, and I saw the drawings of the shipyard, how they designed the deck. I said, I will redesign the deck. Because as soon as I saw all the objects that I wanted to have it, I said, the more beautiful boats from the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, which were racing for the America's Cup, were with flush deck. So we want to have a flush deck. Are you agree? He said, yes. OK, we will do a flush deck. So I started by going to the shipyard, and after that I met him in London because he was living in London. So, and we spent one day to discuss what does he wanted. What did he wanted? And he wanted to go sailing sometimes alone, sometimes with his sister and his mother, and sometimes with friends. So he wanted to have a different way of living inside the boat. So then I proposed to do a sort of a loft with sliding partition to reorganize the space as he wanted. And we started by working. We're going every month to the shipyard because they were developing the boat and building it during the 3 years. And I was developing the project inside by sections because you know that in a boat you have to work by sections because everything has to be precise in sections. Because plan is a thing, but the plan is never the same because of the body of the boat itself. And you have to do some mock-up, and after that you redesign and etc. etc. So it was a very interesting time of 3 years, going every month to the shipyard and to the sea. So it was like holidays. So the flush deck, it's not bad. And we had to develop the design of it because the shipyard said, but I can't do this curve, like we have to have an object. No, I want to have the continuous surface. So we designed everything, all the pieces of the wood for them to show them how they can do that with a sort of a salon in the middle and the smooth surface to develop the strength to support the winches. And we had to have windows, and I didn't want to have the framed windows that usually you have on the deck. So I proposed to have a sheet of black glass on both sides, different pieces of black glass to protect from the sun and to have the possibility to have the natural light coming down on both sides of the space below. And by having the artificial light in the ceiling along this black glass, to have the artificial light in the evening coming up at the same place to light the deck itself in the evening. So all the red surface is inside space. So here there is a crew, 5 people. And this is the owner cabin with a huge partition here because inside this partition you slide this part of the partition and this one, bathroom and bedroom. You have only a little corridor along the engine rooms. The kitchen with a sliding partition which is going inside this partition. A cabin here that you don't describe because the partition is inside there. Another cabin here, and the partition here, and the partition here, but everything is continuous space, the same space, etc., and bathroom, etc. The place of the corridor with the shelves for music and books. In the middle of the space, under the salons that we have underneath, the steps to go up, the kitchen, and you see that the bar is cut in the middle because you can slide the partition to separate the kitchen from the other part of the space. And the master bedroom with the bed that we designed, with all the cupboards on both sides of the space, everywhere on the both sides, and you don't have any furniture. You are free inside this space. The bathroom on the back is limited at the back by a mirror partition that gives the impression that the space is bigger. When you go to the bathroom, you discover that you can take a shower with a perforated floor and the shower in this side of the ceiling. That means that the shower is the whole bathroom. But if you want to take a bath, you lift up the floor and you have the bathtub inside the floor. So all the bathroom is a bathtub. And we designed the basin that seems to be double because of the mirror wall and everything. And 10 years ago, we did furniture for the UNESCO headquarters. So I do that now without explaining. Furniture. I always have to finish like that. Furniture for the UNESCO with seats, etc. Table, paper basket, ashtray. Furniture for a gallery, which is open like that and like that. A garden for a festival of garden in Chaumont-sur-Loire. It was the thematic of, in 2009, was color. So we decided to do a black garden. It was sheets of glass, powder, and silencious space. The jump above Paris, which is in the Louis Vuitton space and the art space on the Champs-Élysées on the top. The roof that we did a ramp, two sheets of glass facing Paris. But this glass has a particular film on it, which is a 3D film that you can, when you go directly on the B-side, you don't look through. But if you turn your head, you look through. And in SciArc, in Los Angeles last year, we did an installation in their art space where we built that form, that space. 4 spaces, triangle, with doors at different positions, inclined in different positions because not one wall is vertical, they are all inclined, and covered by mirrored. At the end, when you look at the space, you don't understand how it is. Everything is reflecting, everything is abstract, everything is, you don't know where is the floor, you don't know where start the walls, the space is different. And I love to play with this ambiguity of perception of space. And the gallery that I show you at the beginning, where I worked as a dog, and the dog needed a bed, and he wanted to bring back the usual bed, and I said no, so we provided that for Victor. That's all. Just in time.